For more on this, let's speak now to David van Wyk, researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation. David, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Listening to one of the community members, they're saying about 106 of the houses have been built, and of course they'll be moving in gradually. The Premier saying that the handing over of these houses marks a significant milestone in efforts to provide relief and support to the victims of Jagerfontein. Do you agree with all this?
Well, I think that, first of all, no one will move into their houses because there's no furniture in the houses, and a lot of the property that people lost is still unaccounted for. So you've got the key to an empty house. We have also received photographs of those houses, and I visited the area about a month ago. And, the quality of those houses are not the same as the quality of the houses that people lost there. The building is very shoddy, the plumbing is very shoddy, the workmanship generally is generally not up to scratch. So that is a problem. The other problem that is there is that there's been no culpability. Who is responsible for the disaster? Because there's been no commission of inquiry to keep anyone responsible, which should have been the first and immediate step to do, and then to determine what needs to be done and how to fix things. And so many of the community members are, in actual fact, quite unhappy about the houses and the quality of the houses that they are receiving, generally it was.
Pardon me, David, for coming in there. I'm going to get to the part about accountability in just a moment, but to something that you've said about what you describe as shoddy work when it comes to some of these households. We were listening to the spokesperson of the mine there saying that they're going to rebuild, the houses for the people and find a way to ensure that they restore the livelihoods of the people. So I wonder then, do you believe that they're not doing enough work to try and do this if they're not building, according to your view, houses that are up to scratch?
Well, yes, I think that there's been a lot of problems in the building of these houses. That's why it took so long. There have been labour disputes in December. There were labour disputes in May. Many of the houses already have cracks in them. Some of the plumbing and piping and so on is not what it should be from what we could observe. And when someone runs you over with their car, they should repair you to a better state than what you were in before. Not to a similar state, not to a worse state, but to a better state than what you were before. The other thing that concerns me is that most of these houses are built exactly where the previous houses got washed away. They're on the wrong side of the tailings facility of that mine. They're right in the dust line when the wind blows and all the dust from the tailings blow into these houses. They are also right in the middle of the area where the wetland is that, in our opinion, caused the tailing collapse and failure. The river runs in between Itumeleng and Charlesville. And it's always the case in South Africa, given our apartheid history, that it's the poor who are on the wrong side of the mine dumps and the dangers that the mine pose. So, this was an opportunity to build the houses somewhere safe and away from that particular danger zone.
So in light of that, then, how much danger is the community potentially in now?
Well, I think that we're in August, we're in the dust season right now, and the dust blowing off there, people are complaining. One of the residents that we engage with tells us that his child is on a respiratory system because of respiratory problems. That dust there is highly problematic. It's possible that the dust contains asbestos. For example, most diamond mines, blue ground contains asbestos. It's possible that it contains arsenic. We know that there are very high levels of arsenic in the area, and it's possible that it contains silica, all of which is bad for people's respiration. Now, under apartheid, Jagerfontein itself was built on the safe side of the mine, whereas the township communities, the working class, were put on the dangerous side of the mine. And these houses shouldn't be where they are. They should have used this opportunity to allocate other land, and the local government there has access to other land, and they should have built these houses away from the danger zone.
So what becomes the role then, in light of that, of the departments, that are needed in order to look at some of these issues that you're raising?
Well, I think that the Department of Water Affairs started a case in November 2022. That case somehow just disappeared because the mine wasn't compliant with the directives of the Department of Water Affairs. And, the Department of Water Affairs warned them of the danger at the time, as well as community members warning them of the danger at the time. The other thing is that, why is it that in our context we don't begin to challenge the legacy of apartheid spatial arrangements in our society? Why is it that we don't take people out of the dangerous zones? Because in Johannesburg, all along Main Reef Road, people are on the wrong side of the mine dumps if they happen to be black. The same thing in Marikana, for example. We have Wonderkop communities on the wrong side of the mine dump. And we find this in Welkom, Bronville and other townships there. We find it on the East Rand and everywhere. It is time that the majority of the people in our country actually gets access to quality land and not just the throwaway land, which is, the land which is in the most dangerous position.
Some compelling points you're making there. And finally, I want to circle back to an issue that you spoke about around accountability. In the absence of this commission of inquiry that you talk about, how much information has come to the fore when investigations were conducted to look at what caused this and how can it be prevented? And what does it mean, the absence of information for accountability?
Well, we published 2 reports on Jagerfontein, one immediately after the disaster and another one later. And in our reports, we gave verbal accounts of people who worked on the mine who warned the day that the wall was going to break, and no one listened to them. We had community members, the mayor himself, a year before the breaking of the tailings, actually warned that the tailings would break. That was even before he was elected as a mayor. It was obvious for anyone in that community that they were in danger, and no one listened to them at the time. The tailings are built on a shallow aquifer with free water streams flowing in from behind it, making it at its base very unstable. And then, of course, at its surface level, if it gets overloaded, and it was overloaded, and the slope of the tailings was too steep, these were all factors that contributed to the thing collapsing. And so there one should look back at who gave the environmental impact assessment and environmental management plan for that mine in the first place. Those consultants should actually be blacklisted and not be allowed to do any other mining related projects. Yeah,
an environmental impact assessment is quite critical, especially as you mentioned now some of the issues around those tailings and how their stability may be impacted. But thank you so much, David, for your time, and we will try then to get answers from the relevant authorities, because you raising some compelling arguments here. That was David van Wyk, researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation.